Gerry Anderson, MG Harris, Chris Thompson, Richard James, the man who I will always think of, the man who gave me a hug at the pre-event party. Yeah. You've all got individual microphones and stuff.
Hello.
Morning. Hello. How are you all this morning? You alright?
We've got a sugar high, if such a thing exists.
It's the cupcakes.
We've been eating cupcakes and chocolate. We're just sitting there surrounded by chocolate and cupcakes. So
Well
after
done.
this, you should all go down and grab some.
Nicole made the cupcakes. They're awesome. She spent all yesterday just churning out cupcakes. So you did a book launch this morning?
Yes.
No microphone, no. That was my microphone. So would you like to go over what is the book launch? What have you launched other than the book?
Well, is anyone here a fan of Gerry Anderson?
They're in a panel about Gerry Anderson.
I'm just checking. We haven't got any, we might have some pop-ins. You get pop-ins occasionally.
Yeah, if you're not, then get out.
No. Pop-ins are welcome. So Gerry Anderson, in the last few years of his life, he was sort of thinking over what he would do if he were to reboot Thunderbirds. And as you probably will be aware, he didn't control the rights at the end of his life of Thunderbirds. So he was thinking, if I was going to write or create a TV show that was kind of like about an international rescue organisation, I would do some things different. And one of the things he would do differently would be, for example, he wouldn't have made it just all boys. It would have had a lot of strong women characters. In fact, he wanted a woman to be the kind of the main character. And he thought, I'll hide the base, because Google Earth had started to exist, and he was very impressed with that, wasn't he? And he thought, well, where would you hide a base? So he decided that he would have a base that was under the water. So he was working on these ideas, and then, as we'll know, he passed away before he could finish working on them. And I was brought in by Jamie, very shortly after Gerry died, to talk about carrying on the work that he'd started. So to cut a very long story short, as some of you may know, we went to Kickstarter, which is a website for crowdfunding, to get this project off the ground. Did anyone here back it by any chance? Thank you very much, backers, yay. So we got the book backed by Kickstarter. That was going to be to put a hardback book out and with lots of collectibles and everything, but some publishers started to get interested then, because they'd originally not been interested. They got interested at that point, and they said, actually, bring that back, let's have a look at that again. And then one of the publishers, Orion, said, you know what, we think that would fit in the children's imprint with some small changes. And the main change really was that the protagonist was no longer, the main character was no longer going to be a woman called Caroline Carrington, but her son, her teenage son, who was also in the story. So kind of I had started writing it, I rejigged it from the point of view of Ben. And so Ghost Mine is the second book in the series, and in a sense it's the first one that I wrote from the beginning with Ben as the main character in mind. So it's kind of much more Ben-centric. The first one is an origin story, kind of about the origin of Gemini Force Rescue Agency and how Ben and his mum get introduced to that agency. The second one is all Ben, all being, learning how to be part of this rescue agency. So that's your long answer to what is Ghost Mine.
I love the phrase Ben-centric.
Ben-centric.
I might start using that. I don't know how I'll allocate it to other stuff, but I love it. That's so Ben-centric. I don't love it. So, Jamie, your involvement with Gerry Anderson. What was your sort of process for thinking, right, I'm going to go to the Kickstarter and something like that?
Well, kind of as MG said, the problem was that we were taking this book around to publishers, and they weren't utterly convinced that there was a strong enough market for the book, I guess.
Well, I think they were, sort of, but they actually didn't know how they'd get to the market, because I don't know if you've paid any attention to what's happened to bookshops kind of more in, say, the last 10, 15 years. They've become much more segmented. Have you noticed that they'll say, these kind of books are here and those kind of books are there. And so, you've got 9 to 12 and under 8 books, and then you've got teenage books, and then you've got science fiction, crime, just, fiction A to Z. You've got cookery books and everything. And they were sitting there thinking about the bookshop, and they said, where would this book go? We don't even know. Where would it go in the shop? Would it go in the children's section? We said, well, no, because it's got adult characters, and it's adult characters features point of view characters, so, it could be in science fiction. And they said, oh. science fiction, but so they just kind of got flummoxed, literally, because they couldn't decide where it would go in the bookshop. And if you don't know where it's going to go in the bookshop, and you're the publisher, who do you have the conversation with at Waterstones? You've got to know who you're going to talk to, and then they have to know how they're going to sell it. And because of the way that the book industry has changed, partly because of the way books are sold, they need to know where they go. So they kind of just got too confused. And nobody's in a good position to buy a book from you when they're confused. So they just went, we don't understand. So we just said, thank you very much, we'll go to Kickstarter.
But
Because we knew
that was not a good reason to not do anything with it, though, just because there's so much further to go.
Well, we knew that there would be an audience,
Yeah, so we wanted to get it out there, had to find the right writer, and MG did a few chapters as a test write, which was just great to read, because it was like I was reading Dad's words. The pacing and the action and the language was all spot on. So she'd become an awesome plagiarist, or is a very talented writer, one of the two.
I was just writing what I thought Gerry would, not what I thought he would write, because I've never really read anything by Gerry, but I had seen lots of stuff, and so I was kind of trying to write what I would imagine Gerry would have produced based on what I'd seen of the scripts. So, to start with, we thought it might be for TV, so the first things that I saw were treatments, actually written like a screenplay almost. And then later he decided, I'm going to try writing it, so he tried writing a few chapters. And there was enough there to see the flavour of it, how it was going to be. And it was sort of, very similar to Thunderbirds, but kind of more updated, really.
I imagine it being a really surreal experience for you, Jamie, reading MG's words, but, in the world of your father and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to a few other authors and had a few treatments already, and a few early chapters, and none of them felt right. So to read the words and just instantly have that gut feeling that it was the right person and they were writing the right style. Yeah, it was really nice. And to know that we could actually do it, because there was always that worry that you might not be able to find anyone who could write in the right way to do it justice.
You got 2 books now. It's working. More on the way?
I've written one more. So the deal we did with Orion was for 3 books. Originally, because there was enough kind of in the ideas that Gerry had left that I thought we can get 3 books out of this. Because there were fragments, and you could see there were like setups for stories that weren't resolved, which is really nice to me as well, because if I don't know how it would have ended, then that does give me some freedom. I mean, obviously it's going to end with Ben saving the day. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. It's not that, Anderson shows are not bleak and miserable. The heroes win, and that's a very solid part of the Anderson universe. So, I knew that the endings always have to be upbeat, positive, at least for Ben. But there's one particular scene, and it's in the 3rd book actually, that came from one of the opening chapters, and it was such a good setup. This awful thing happened. I'm not even going to say what it is, but an awful thing has happened. And in Gerry's original treatment, that was one of the possible reasons for why the guy who sets up the rescue agency sets it up, because he sees this thing happen, everyone dies, and he thinks, if only I could have done something. So I thought that's too good to not use. So that's in the 3rd book. But because we just got this awful, terrible thing happening, and there's no reason given, I can make up a reason for why it happened. So, and a whole story spun out of just that one scene, basically, which is a very, hopefully, gripping scene.
And these books are available to buy downstairs.
Yeah, we've got
the sign-in room. Both books, you've got Probert.
Yeah, we've got both books, so it's discounted.
The cupcakes?
Sorry?
Cupcakes all gone?
No, still got some cupcakes left. We've got lots of chocolate left. Somebody made some lovely chocolate bar. We've got a whole kind of gold mining theme, because the 2nd book is set in a gold mine.
Nice. Well, Annette and I are going to pop down there and get some books. Hopefully, you guys will. If anybody does have a question, stick your hand up. Because I'd be really tempted for me to just monopolise these guys' time someday. But yeah, so stick your hand up and I'll run over to you with a mic and stuff. Chris, how you doing? You alright?
Good, thanks.
Good. Now, would you like to sort of pitch yourself? Because I must confess, I didn't know that much about the role and stuff.
That's cool. My name is Chris Thompson. I'm a sort of concept artist, 3D modeler person. My job is to take what MG's written and what Jamie directs and what Andrew Probert has designed and turn it into like really awesome, kick-ass concept pictures. So I've done a makeover of the base, like a wee model of it and design the outside of it just to Andrew Probert's specifications. I've done Gemini Force 2, which is their big kick-ass transport plane, and I'm working currently on Gemini Force 3, which is a double-rotated Osprey type helicopter.
Guys keeping you busy then.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have a lot of, do you sit down in a room and go, what would you like, or do they give you sort of a free-ish range?
Basically, the designs are led by Andrew Probert. Andrew Probert, just for those who don't know, is a famous concept artist. He designed the Enterprise D, the Enterprise from the motion picture. He did the Cylons, Airwolf. He finished off the Back to the Future car. And he contacted Jamie to be a part of a project after Gerry died. And Jamie led him aboard Gemini Force One. And yeah, so he would do all the designs and he had specifications of what he needed to do. Because MG, you like to work from design?
I prefer to work, so that my imagination doesn't actually have to come up with aircraft designs, and I'm not really an aircraft designer, even in my imagination. I'm not particularly good at that, so I was really happy. I would kind of point Andrew, in the direction of things I found on the internet. So, how about this, how about that? And then he would design something, and then he'd read my scripts and go, what's this that you put in there? That's not in my design. And I'd go, no, I'm writing the story. You have to make your design fit the story. And he'd get grumpy about that. I don't know about that,
But it was fun watching all the sketches come through, and Jamie was very kind enough to let me on board after my small harassment campaign to let him do something.
Harassment works.
Yeah. Quick tip, if you ever want a job, harassment is the way to go. And I got the sketches through first for Gemini Force 2, which is, it's about 80 meters long. It's this huge sort of like aircraft. It's a swing wing, sort of like hypersonic craft. It launches from Gemini Force One, which rides it out of the water, pod opens, big massive transport craft flies off, and it looks like class. Whenever we got the sketches in, I was like really, really impressed. And it was just an absolute pleasure working on it. And it's quite exciting now, because now we're starting the process again with Gemini Force 3. It's good to kind of get back into the swing of things and design, sort of expand the universe a bit.
I was looking all sort of in thought then, Richard, you're going to talk about me now. Yes. How are you doing today?
Yes, I'm good, thank you very
You
much.
enjoying your day so far?
I've had a fantastic day, thank you, because I'm right next to the cupcakes.
You are. Have you liberated any of the cupcakes?
I've liberated one or two, yes.
One or two, or is it one or two?
Or three.
Three, so it's three. Or four.
Who's counting?
Well, we are. Because I'm not a cupcake yet.
There's no shame for where we are.
It's very nice cupcakes. Space Precinct Man.
Space Precinct, that's the reason I'm here. It's my connection with the Anderson universe is Gerry Anderson's last live-action TV series, which is 20 years old, in fact. This September, it was first broadcast on BBC Two in 1995. You won't recognise me, of course, because I was on 6 inches of prosthetic makeup, playing an alien police officer, Orin.
You've got Orin on your desk.
I've got a toy Orin with me, that's right, and I've also got a fan-made mask to give you some idea of how the character looks. It's a good-looking chap.
And you've got some prop guns.
I've got some prop guns, I've got my original shirt and badge, things that, again, I liberated on the last day of the shoot. Well, I just put them in my bag and thought, if they want them back, they know where I am. If there's a second series, they know where I am. It didn't happen, of course. So they've been stuck in my loft for the last 20 years.
Like the cupcakes, which have probably gone.
Yes. So, of course, a day like today is the perfect opportunity to bring them out and show them off.
What is the most common question you get asked about Space Precinct?
Well, the most common question is, what was Space Precinct? That's fine. So I understand. We did 24 episodes over a year. And they were shown firstly on Sky, when Sky was still a very young fledgling channel, and then 6 months later it was shown on BBC Two, Monday evenings at 6 o'clock. Did reasonably well in ratings actually, got about 3 million I think, which wasn't too bad for those days, on BBC Two. But it's not one of Gerry's more well-known series. Those that do know it are quite passionate about it. But very often people pass me by with just a glazed look in their eye. No, never heard of that, and they move on to Robert Llewellyn or whoever might be next.
He's done so many stuff with Gerry Anderson. I was looking at the list and I remember Terrorhawks. To me, that was the one that came out when I was a kid. And I was also aware of Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds Joe 90. Scarlet, it just keeps going on. It's big 99. What? It's like, well, it's like,
absolutely. It's
it's
quite
like this. There was someone there that I hadn't heard of.
So even to be part of a show that, I appreciate isn't as well known as the others, is great for me to feel a part of that huge legacy and part of the Anderson family in some small way. Not literally the Anderson family, of course, but metaphorically.
It's not like the adoption brothers. Wouldn't like Richard Jane. Do you go around for Christmas and stuff?
No.
Oh, Jamie, come on. He's lonely. He's just like.
I'm very fond of Rich. I don't know why he's being so lonely.
The first time I met Jamie, he was 9 years old. So I met him at Pinewood Studios when we were making the series, and he was just a wee small thing.
And Richard freaked me out because Orin was overdubbed with an American accent, and so when Richard, not only did he pull off the top of the head, exposing, well, you can see underneath.
Doesn't that feel scary?
But then you spoke, and the voice didn't match up to the character, and I thought you were very weird.
First impression, just
It must have been really strange when you met him when you were 9. That's obviously scary enough when he's wearing the head and stuff. But when did you first realise that Gerry Anderson World was this big? Gerry Anderson World with all these different shows in.
Well, it took a while because I grew up surrounded by stuff, Terrorhawks, VHSs, which I watched constantly, and he didn't really keep a lot of stuff at home. Not a very nostalgic man, so he didn't keep scripts or models or anything. I had Lady Penelope and Parker in my wardrobe for a few years when I was a kid, hanging in bin bags, which didn't seem a very fitting way for Lady Penelope to be stored. But it wasn't until 91 when Thunderbirds was reshown that I really sort of saw the full impact and realised actually it wasn't just my friends at school that were watching the show now, but their parents had watched it before and they were kind of really massive fans of it. My friends would give me 60s annuals that their parents had given to them for me to take home and get signed, which is a weird experience as a kid.
Which your dad's like, I want yours.
Well, no, he was really grateful. He was always really grateful to the fans. He never really understood it. He thought, I've just made 2 TV shows, there's nothing that special. He was just quite self-deprecating in that way.
Awesome TV shows.
They were awesome TV shows.
Very, very special.
Yeah. But then Space Precinct came along in '94 when they started shooting it, and I spent lots of time in the studio and would borrow props and little bits and pieces to take into school, which kind of made me a bit cooler. So, and then I got even more of a sense of the scale of it.
It was a big deal at the time, and I mean, Space Precinct famously was the most expensive TV show of its day. It was $1 million per episode.
That was before when even I remember it.
Yeah, which 20 years ago was an awful lot of money. Most of that was my fee, of course. Yeah, which I invested wisely.
You're liberating the budget.
But of course, the other question that I'm always asked is, what was it like to wear the mask? That's the usual one.
Warm.
So you want to ask that one?
I've got a question. What was it like to wear the mask?
Funny you should say that. I'm not really asked that very often. But it's very often very uncomfortable, as you can imagine. We had remote-controlled eyes, which were moved by an operator who would stand behind the camera with the remote control box. Various muscles in the mask would move as well, over which we had no control. So we had little servos going in our mask, which made hearing things very difficult. Our vision was extremely limited, so in the early episodes you could literally see us walking along like this, touching the furniture, work our way around the set. The only bit of us that you actually saw were our tongues, because we wore false teeth, full face prosthetic makeup, and gloved hands as well.
How long would you wear the mask for?
Well, it was designed quite cleverly, because there were an awful lot of us in this stuff. It was designed to be quite a quick process. So the chin part, the lower part of the face, would be glued to our own chins and around our lips on a sort of a balaclava affair. And that's how we'd spend the day. And then when we were filming, they'd literally get the top half like a lid or a hat, stick it on the top, pop it into place, hook up the wires, and off you go. But it was quite useful in that when we got too hot, we were able to just kind of lift the top off. I mean, I've still got some pictures at home that are quite comical. A few actors with their lids lifted up, just a little bit of air in.
Nice. And Chris, you brought some stuff.
Yes, I did a reanimation. Kind of just like, it was supposed to be sort of a lookable background animation, nothing particularly exciting, but it just shows a wee bit of a background, sort of like of the base and how it works.
Oh, yeah,
I've never seen this before.
Yeah, MG hasn't seen this yet.
What about you spelling mistake? My legendary character spelling.
Test, that's all.
But whenever stuff comes up, I can't talk about it because we're about to see Gemini Force 2. And this is her there. It's kind of like flat-bedded aircraft. It's got 8 VTOL thrusters which lift it up into the air. Swing wing. This is it coming out of its pod just here to the bottom right. Along the wheel here on the right-hand side, you can see the sealets of some of the other craft. So 3, 4 going around clockwise, things like that. There we go, and we're about to see the face in a second, or maybe we're not. That's some of the concept art I did for the first time when Jamie first commissioned me. So we had the craft we were trying to work out the scale and things like that and how it would come together.
We're having a model built of GF2 right now, 3 foot long.
It's bigger than, is it bigger than 3 foot? It's huge.
Yeah, it's 3 foot by 3 foot.
This is the base. This is Gemini Force One as it appears on the surface. So it'll be underwater about 30 meters or so. It's like not too far down, but it's covered in khaki, so that you can't quite see it. There's the wee pods on the side, all lift up or open depending on what the mission needs. And then that wee section in the middle is where the base is, so it can lift up on its own, and there's a wee helicopter for people to go to the mainland. Some of the interior is done by Dave Lowe, who produced the first trailer for Gemini Force, and he did these wee sort of airlocks and meeting rooms and corridors and things, just to kind of give it a bit of an idea of what it was like inside. So yeah.
See, Chris does cool stuff.
Very good. I just learned lines.
That is impressive. Well, thank you.
I think it's important to have a visual feel for what it is like, because everyone who's watched an Anderson show before, they're relying on seeing cool craft and explosions and all that kind of stuff. And all that's written in expertly by MG, just having that added dimension of nicely rendered visuals.
Well, it's not just that though. I mean, Jerry's dream was to see this as a TV show or a film or a feature series, and we, from the beginning, I think we felt a very strong responsibility to carry as much of that dream forward as possible. So by having art, by having animation, everything, it just puts you in a strong position. If you go to a TV producer or a film producer, any studio, if you give them a book to read, that's fine. They do get ideas from books, but if they can see stuff as well, and they can see that a lot of the work is already done, and everything, it's like you're giving them a much bigger platform that they can then go to raise money to get something done. So that's the idea, is that we're putting together a whole package, and we're going to get some audio stuff done as well. Just waiting to see whether somebody wants the option to do audio books, but otherwise we would do a short production, just enough to get some, studio interested.
Anybody got any questions? Do I have to keep getting blinded by the lights? Any hands go up? I can't even miss anything here. Who's got a favourite Gerry Anderson project? Bob's got one. Hello, Bob. All right.
How do you?
Just using my camera. So, what is your question? So, let me run over the microphone, because there was supposed to be somebody else helping, but it's nobody.
When it comes to the original Thunderbirds, the concept of the technology, of course, at the time, you had virtual free reign. With something like the Gemini Force now, a lot more people are tech savvy, so how much of a challenge is it coming up with trying to make things so that it's sort of believable in a way, rather than so far in the future?
It's actually, I think it's much easier than it was then, because in those days probably to do any research to make anything remotely credible, it would be much harder, but in fact now I can just do that research on the internet in a minute. So for example, we don't make a huge big deal about it, but in the first book and in the second book, a certain kind of invisibility is mentioned, okay? It's not really visibility, obviously, because that's, well, silly. That's silly, proper invisibility, but so then I started to research, what technology is in development towards some kind of invisibility, and there is. So there are reconnaissance military tanks that are covered with LED plaques that project. So the computer, basically makes an image on each plaque of what is behind the tank. Now this is in use now, okay, so I thought, well, I'm having that, because if it's in use now, then okay, we can theoretically have an aircraft. So Gemini Force 4, which is called Aquarius, is completely covered in these LED plaques, so it can look invisible, it's just camouflaged really well. And then I found some research into another kind of invisibility, which can produce these like cones, basically like a cylinder around you. So you're not properly invisible because you could be seen from above, but basically there's some kind of, I don't understand the physics of it, but like a cylinder around you. So we've got that as something that camouflages the base as well. Just coming up during the day, it can camouflage, it causes a cylinder. So all of that kind of thing, you know, well, anyone can look it up as much as I can. I found it all on the internet, so other people can do that. And I don't really have to make anything up completely. I just basically go and find experimental stuff, and everything that's in the books is basically in development somewhere. I'm not saying it's going to ever be mass-produced or whatever, but it's in development. And if you go and look at, you know, kind of conspiracy theory videos of things that are thought to be in development under, you know, top secret military conditions, much more far-fetched things than I mentioned are in development. So pretty much all the tech is real, in use, or in development at the moment.
One of the cool things about working with Andrew Probert is that he comes from a sort of design perspective that everything's got to work, at least in the universe it comes in. So whenever something comes from him, there's always like a genuine, he's thought about it, and it's like he's thought about the logic of it, where everything needs to go, there's entire proper space inside for everything. One of the cool things about building the practical model with Richard Ashton is he phones me up just every so often just to double check small details, like where we put the sensors and things like that. And it's great because it means I've got to sort of like check out, do some research and make sure I have to justify almost every part of the craft. So like the pidot tube, the wee sensors on the side, whether like we put stealth plating, like that sort of rigid plating that you get on the undercarriage of the Lightning II, little things like that, just so that like it does feel perfectly genuine.
Excellent.
You okay with that one, Bob?
Yeah, wonderful.
Fantastic. Any other questions regarding Gemini Force One or Gerry Anderson? Or just Richard James with a question, I think? Do this walking thing now.
Do you have any of the props with you today on display, or Andrew Probert's sketches, anything like that we can see?
I can put some of Andrew's stuff on my laptop downstairs. You can have a look. Yeah, there's some interesting bits and pieces, and also some of Chris's concept art using Andrew's stuff worked out, which looks fantastic. You know, nice dramatic shots of Gemini Force One rising out of the water and that kind of thing.
We have quite a big collection of artwork now, actually, so Jamie needs to kind of curate it now and put as much on the web as is suitable. I think you're very perfectionist, aren't you? He's like, no, I don't want anything going out unless it's like practically the movies, you know, what you would put out of the movie. And I think it's quite interesting to see stuff that's in progress as well. I think even sketches are interesting, to be honest.
Oh, especially Probert's stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
so talented, isn't it?
He has this book. We met him at Comic-Con in London, and he was carrying around this book, just like a, you know, hardback book about this big. And he was just, every drawing in it was a thing of beauty, okay? And even the sketches, he'd do these little sketches, and then on one page, and then, you know, you turn over and there'd be like a proper big sketch of it. And it's just page after page of this, and he's just sitting there, you know, doing another one. So I got him to show me all the pages that had Gemini Force stuff in it. It was amazing.
It's quite nice because he always goes for the, he'll start, there'll be the final design which will look quite normal, but then he'll start off with something completely out there. Like he'll put rollerblades like on the bottom of the craft or upside down, something just completely mental, and then he'll just rain all these ideas and become something that looks quite unique but also quite practical. Quite like.
Thank you, David, for that question. Any other? I'd have to move very forward.
I just wondered, have you had any interest from the studios at the moment to...
We've got one at the moment, I think.
One that's been discussed with an agent. So I think as they get further on, we'll get more interest. We're in that weird landscape now where every studio wants to basically only invest in something that already has a fan base, that already has a history, which is why we're seeing more and more Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Avengers, and X-Men and stuff, because a lot of studios are too scared to take a risk. So we're working on new stuff that doesn't have existing background stuff. But as we get further down the line and more books coming out, I should think we'll get more interest.
And is there a role for a slim, tall, mid-40s?
Gemini handsome.
Can you do a slight Swiss accent?
You can revoice me.
Yeah.
I'm not proud. I'm not proud. We can make it work. Let's talk.
Studios are daft. They want to invest in something only if it's got a brand. Gerry Anderson. It's a brand.
Well, actually, I still think it's better for TV, to be honest. I think it's better for television because I think you want. Otherwise, you're not going to get to know the characters. And it's one thing to put Avengers Assemble up, which has, how long have those characters been there? Up to 50 years. So, you've got 50 years of legacy, lots of people have read those books. We know the characters. We don't need a long time with them, whereas, Gemini Force has a crew of up to 12. Actually, it's 11. So there's 11 characters. You don't want to get to know all of them in, obviously Ben's the main one, but this is a children's book, if you like, or this is what's called a young adult book. So it's all written from Ben's point of view. But the other characters also had interesting lives and stuff, and it's just, I'm not focusing on them because we're trying to write this in a way that's going to appeal to, to people under 14. A TV series, you would not make Ben-centric. You would definitely make that, probably more focused on the adult characters. So there's a lot of scope, but it probably would benefit from long-form television. Like Netflix would be our dream partner, maybe.
Netflix or Amazon.
Or Amazon Prime, something like that, yeah.
If Netflix are listening to this, which they could be.
Yes, Netflix, let's talk.
Yes, so it's Netflix. Any final questions? Maybe.
I know you said doing just the 3 books. Would you consider doing more?
I'd consider it, yeah.
Yeah.
I would consider it.
Do it.
Well, the publisher has to commit to that. And I think they wanted to do 3 just to see how they did. We've settled for 3 because 3 is a nice, little trilogy. You can take that to the Probert Studios. If you go to them with a long book series, they really are going to ask, did it sell millions? Whereas if you've got 3, it's enough for them to sort of see the potential of longer stories or more stories. So it doesn't sort of end after 3. I mean, there's a resolution, but it's kind of implied that there would be lots more adventures.
And if there's no final answer, I would ask my question. So you can't put a hand up.
If you want to ask any more questions, obviously we're going to be signing and eating cupcakes and chocolate. All the live long days, and come and eat chocolate and cupcakes.
Before Richard gets them all. Sorry, liberates them all.
He couldn't eat all of
No,
them.
even I couldn't make my way through.
Really a lot. Big
Now,
sheets of chocolate.
other than Space Precinct, Richard, what's your favourite Gerry Anderson project?
Other than Space Precinct, my favourite, I was always a big fan of Captain Scarlet, which to me seemed to have more adult tones than Thunderbirds, a bit darker. I love the idea of the man who couldn't die. And Space 1999 I loved as well. UFO is quite fun. And I've seen the odd clip of Secret Service, which is very strange.
There's a solitary chair in the Secret Service.
Very strange. Go on YouTube and have a look, it's hilarious.
Chris, other than Gemini Force One?
Stingray. Thunderbirds have always been attached to, but Stingray's the big one for me. That theme tune and everything.
MG, Jamie, other than Gemini Force One?
Thunderbirds and Terrorhawks.
Terrorhawks, obviously. Terrorhawks is amazing. And if any of you are Terrorhawks fans, or even if you're not, I don't care. We've made a Terrorhawks audio series with Big Finish, which was released earlier in the year, and that was such tremendous fun to do, and it was a great listen. And I have 3 copies downstairs left, if anybody would like one. But I think it's funny because Terrorhawks was one of those shows that had the audience who watched Thunderbirds and stuff originally were expecting more of the same, and it was something that was quite different. So, yeah, but it was divisive for the old audience, but it picked up a massive audience at the time. It had sort of 9 or 10 million viewers a week in the 80s, which was fantastic. And I think it needs another airing. It needs a bit of a renaissance.
It does bring it back, definitely. I know these guys, as I said, they are downstairs. Richard's got props. Everybody's got stuff with them. Books. I'm going to get one of those books, which I'm sure you'll sign. Because he's nice, aren't
You give you a cupcake.
they? Doesn't take money, takes cupcakes.
No, I do take money.
You do take money.
I don't think it's expression.
He gets the cupcakes. I like that. But they are downstairs. Go and have a chat to them. As you can see, they're awesome. They had no idea what I was going to ask them, because to be honest, I didn't know what I was going to ask them either. Hope you've all enjoyed the panel. Please do sort of keep these guys company. It's really good.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
And you have Gemini Force One wristband.
Oh yeah, everyone take the
If anyone would like one, you can come and find us outside or downstairs. Thanks.